In this next project, we are going to do another end-to-end. Basically, we're going to create a repository, make a change, commit that change, and push it. There are going to be two new things we're going to do. One, we are going to create the branch locally. Normally, what we've seen so far is we create the branch on the remote and we pull it. But this time, I'm actually going to create the branch locally, a brand new branch locally, then we push it to the remote. That's one change. Another thing is I am going to use GitLab instead of GitHub. For all our projects, we've been using GitHub, but in this one, I am going to use GitLab just so I can show you different things. All right. So this is GitLab, and we are going to create a project here. Just like a GitHub, in GitHub, it says create a repository. Here, it says create project, but at the end of the day, it is still a repository. So when you open GitLab, by the way, GitLab is free, so go ahead and create an account. I definitely think you should have an account. You should be playing around with GitLab. It has a lot of features that are pretty awesome, especially the CI/CD feature of it is really, really nice. So create an account. When you're trying to create an account, it might ask you to get some kind of trial. Just say no to the trial. Just get the free GitLab basic account. That's all you need. That's what I have, and it's working really good. All right. So once you go into your account, you're probably not going to see any of this. I mean, you're definitely not going to see any of the repositories. You're not going to have any repository. So you're going to say click create project, and we're going to do a blank project. Create a blank project. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it, let me see, because I prepared for this one. I'm going to call it app to do demo. I'm going to add delete at the end of it. Just later on when I see it, I know exactly what it is. I can just delete it. I don't have to analyze, should I delete it or not? If every time I put a delete in a name of something, a month later when I see it, I just delete it. I don't even look at it. So it saves me a lot of time. Then here, you probably just have your username. I have a couple of groups. You can create groups. As you learn more of GitLab, you'll understand that it's just for organization. So I can just create my user. I just use the username. That's probably what you have. Okay. Then we're going to leave this as empty. We are going to make it private. You feel free to do it public, but I'm going to do it private. This one is important. Please check initialize repository with README. You want to create a README file. This is the same situation in GitLab and GitHub. We talked about it. If you don't check this, it's not going to create README. And what we need is not really the README, it is the branch. If it creates a README file, that means it's going to create a branch. And we want that branch. Otherwise, it's going to just create a blank repository, and you have to create a branch. Then you have to remember the first branch you create is main. So the first branch you create becomes the default, automatically. But if you select this, it's going to create the README file and it's going to create the main branch. Okay. In case you forget that and you end up creating another branch, and that branch, like some custom branch, like my branch 1, and that ends up being your default, then you can just go to settings and change it. But why bother, right? Just click this, make sure it's checked, and that's it. So I'm going to do create project, and that's going to create me a repository. It has a main branch. That's the main thing I wanted. Then it has the README. The README in our case is not very useful. It's just a default, and eventually we would modify it. If you want to, this project is going to have some code, and you're going to have description here about the project. All right, so now let's just check it out. I'm going to do code very similar to GitHub. We can check it out with SSH or with HTTPS, depending on what you're comfortable with. If you already set up SSH, you can do that. If you set up SSH for GitHub, you're still going to have to set it up for GitLab. You have to go to your user account and set up SSH. For most people, HTTPS is the easiest one to use. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to the terminal, and I'm going to go to the folder where I have my project. I want to clone it, right? So if I do ls here, just for the heck of it, I have two folders, and I want this brand new folder or brand new repository to be downloaded into my current location. So I'm going to do git clone and that URL or that path. There you go. I cloned it. If I do ls, you can see that I have 3 folders, and the new one is right here. I have the search thing. That's why the git is highlighted. So I'm going to open this in VS Code because everything is easier to do there. All right, so VS Code is opening up. There you go. We have VS Code. I'm going to close this. All right, so we have this README file, and I can open the terminal. When you open the terminal, automatically it would put you in the right location, which is pretty awesome. I'm going to make this way. So if I do, it's in that folder. So one thing I want to show you is if you're in a folder and you want to see, is it a Git folder or not? There are two things you can do. One, you can check the remote. You can do git remote dash v, just dash v lowercase. It will tell you a URL. Well, I don't know if you call this a URL, but it will give you the Git URL. That means this is a Git repository. Let me go out one, backup one, and I can do the same thing. If I do git remote dash v, and I get this fatal error, not a Git repository. That's one way to see if you are in a Git repository or not. So now I'm going to go into it. I'm going to clear. Another one you can do is you can do ls-la, or in a window you can just do dir, and then you will see this .git folder. If you see this .git folder, that means this folder is a repository. It is being tracked by Git. Git knows about this guy. And that's how Git keeps track of things. This is a folder. We can go into it. There's no point in doing though right now, but we can just go into it. As you can see, it's a directory. If I do ls, there are a bunch of other directories. Okay, so I'm going to go back up. All right, so those are things that, it's not the main part of this tutorial, but something you have to know. So I'm glad I brought it up. Now, to the main point, let's create a branch, make a change, and commit it. That's the end-to-end flow, right? We create a repository in the remote, we cloned it. Now we actually want to make changes. We want to either change the README or add a new file, or maybe this repository existed and we just want to make changes to existing files. In our case, we're just going to create a new file. So before we create a new file, we want to make sure we're on the right branch, right? You do not normally make changes on main. You make your changes on a different branch. Usually it's called a feature branch, and you make the changes on the feature branch. Then you create a pull request or a merge request to merge the changes into main. So git branch to see what branch I'm on. I'm on main, right? So I want to create another one. Normally, what would I done in our previous projects? We would go to the UI. We did it in GitHub, but here in GitLab, I will hit this drop down and I can say new branch, right? Then it will ask me for a name. I can just, give it a name here, create it. I'm going to create a copy from main, basically branching off of main. Then when I come back here, I would pull it. So create it in the remote, pull it to the local. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to create it on the local and we're going to push it to the remote. So the command to create a new branch is git checkout, right? Normally, if the branch is already created, you do git checkout and that will check out the branch. So let me make this smaller. Git checkout, the magic here is -b. If you do -b, you're telling Git, hey, I'm going to create a new local branch. -b, I'm going to say my first branch. Let me just call it that. So it's going to create the branch and it's also going to check it out. It's going to switch to that branch. So if I do git branch, you can see I am on that newly created branch. So now let's make some changes. I'm going to create a new file. Let's just say I'm going to say home.html. HTML, that's right. Then I'm going to say I'll copy it from my code to make things faster, right? It's just a couple of lines, so no big deal. All right, so I added this line. Let's just say this simple line, right? Now if I come here into the terminal and do git status, I see this new file is added, but it is untracked. So I can add it to be tracked. I'm going to tell Git, hey, track this file. So I'm going to say git add home.html, git status, and new file is added. Okay, changes to be committed. It's added, it's in the staging area, it's not committed yet, so it's staged. Now we can commit it. So I can say git commit -m for message, added a new homepage. That's my comment, my commit comment. I just added it. If I do git status, now there are no changes, right? Everything is committed. The next thing what we normally do is we would push it, right? So I'm going to say git push origin. A lot of times if I do git push origin, it would work. But in this case, the remote have no idea this branch has been created, right? So if I just hit this, it's going to give me an error, a fatal error saying basically the remote doesn't know anything about this branch. It doesn't exist. And it gives me the suggestion of what to do. not even a suggestion, an actual solution. Git push set upstream. That's the key. Set upstream origin, my first branch. I'm going to type that. Oh, what just happened? I don't know what just happened. Yeah, the UI looked weird, but I just literally copy pasted that. If I do history, you can see that is the command I made. You can do history on the command line. You can see that's exactly the command I ran. Git push set upstream origin, my first branch. Now, if we go to our remote, let's go back to our repository. And if I click this drop down to see my branches, our new branch is here. And if I click that, our new file should be on that branch. We are on that branch. So the next thing is we want that to be main, right? So we want it to be in main. So we have to create a merge request, NMR. In the GitLab, in the GitHub world, we call it pull request. In the GitLab world, we call it merge request. MR versus PR. They mean exact same thing. It's just terminology. So in GitHub, it's because we just pushed a new change. There's a button right here that says, hey, the next logical step is to create a merge request. So go ahead and create it. But let's do it the actual flow. So I'm going to click this merge request right here on the left side. Then I'm going to say new merge request. Okay. Then I'm going to say from what branch to this branch. This actually makes sense. It goes from left to right. In the GitHub, for some reason, it goes from right to left. This one makes more sense to me, right, left to right. So it's saying from source branch, from what branch, we want to merge my first branch to main branch. We want to click on compare branches, and you will see the diff here at the bottom. You can look at the commit with my message. Remember, this is the message I added. Then you see the actual change. Then I can say create merge request, right? You can leave the delete source branch checked or unchecked. Usually I don't want to delete it. I keep using the branch for a little bit, then I delete it manually. So I'll uncheck that, go to changes, you look at this, and everything is what you expect. Then you go ahead and you merge it. Now your code is basically in main. If you go to repository, you go to this code repository. Obviously, just like anything new, you're going to have to get used to the UI. But I actually do think it's better than GitHub. I'm a fan of GitLab for sure. All right, so that is the whole flow. So to quickly do it again, just to show you the idea of creating a new branch, right? I'm going to say clear. My terminal is doing something really weird. I don't know what is going on. Clear. Okay, so if I do git branch, you can see this is I'm on this branch. I can create a new branch. I can say git checkout another. I'm going to say another local branch. Now if I do this, check this out. It's going to be an error, right? Because that branch does not exist. That branch did not match any that exists. What am I missing? I'm missing the -b to tell it, hey, this is a brand new branch. Just create it and check it out. Hit enter. There you go. Switch to a new branch. If I do git branch, it shows me I'm on this branch. And I just checked it out and I created it. I created it and I checked it out. Okay. Now if I make a change, let's just duplicate this. I can do git status. I'm going to do git commit. I'm going to do the add and the message at the same time, right? I didn't even add it yet. The changes. I didn't stage it yet. But I can do both in one step. Instead of saying git add then git commit, I can just say git commit -am. It's going to add everything that is changed, and then it's going to add a commit message. Just a demo is my message. Oops, I hit enter before I close the quotes. Hit enter. There you go. Now if I do git push origin, we should get the same error that says, hey, you need to actually do this. Instead of just doing git push, you have to do this set upstream. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to hit enter. And this new branch now exists in the remote. If I go here and click on the drop down, wait, let me refresh the page, click on the drop down, another local branch exists here. Oh, another local branch. Yeah, you get the point, right? Branch, same thing, potato. All right, so that's really what I want to show you. It's another workflow where you basically quickly just want to create a branch locally, make a change, and commit it. That is all I have for this one, so let's keep going.